She was left at the shelter by the very person she trusted most. Her owner had walked away, leaving her behind with nothing but confusion and fear. The shelter staff tried their best to comfort her, but she wouldn't eat, wouldn't play, and barely looked at anyone. The stress was too much. Days passed and no one came for her. People walked by her kennel, looked at her trembling body, and moved on. Eventually, her name was added to the euthanasia list. But then a friend shared her story online and everything changed. One couple saw her picture, those scared eyes staring through the cage bars, and knew right away they had to help. Without a second thought, they filled out the adoption forms. A few days later, they brought her home. When she arrived, the sadness on her face was hard to miss. Her eyes were dull and tired, and every sound made her flinch. She didn't bark or wag her tail. She simply sat there, quiet and tense, as if she was waiting for something bad to happen again. The first few days were difficult. She stayed close but never truly relaxed. She allowed them to pet her, but her muscles stayed tight, her breathing quick. It was like she was always ready to be abandoned again. But her new family didn't give up. They gave her space, gentle words, and time. Lots of time. They never forced affection. They just made sure she knew she was safe. Then one small moment changed everything. One afternoon, when she became anxious, she reached out her paw and placed it softly in her owner's hand. She held it there just for a few seconds and took a deep breath. That tiny gesture said what words couldn't. She was asking for comfort, for connection. It was the start of trust. From then on, whenever she felt scared or uncertain, she would quietly reach out her paw again. Her family began to understand that this was her way of saying, "Please stay with me." Over the next 2 months, things began to change. The dog who once hid in the corner started coming forward on her own. She followed them from room to room, gently leaning her fluffy body against their legs as if to say, "I'm here now." Her eyes, once clouded with fear, began to shine. They started calling her White Cloud because of her big, soft face and her pure white fur that looked like a gentle cloud floating through the house. She finally had a name that matched her kind soul. Little by little, she began to show her personality. She discovered her favorite spots. The soft couch became her throne, and she claimed it proudly. She loved walking around the house, exploring every corner, sniffing doors, and even learning to open them with her paw. Each small act said, "This is my home now," but the scars of her past still showed in subtle ways. Sometimes she'd pause, look around nervously, and then quickly find her family to touch their hands with her paw. Even after all that healing, she still needed reassurance. And every time they let her know, she wasn't going anywhere. Walks were another challenge. The vet discovered she had hip dysplasia, a painful condition where the bones in her hips didn't fit together properly. Every step hurt. But White Cloud never complained. She moved slowly, carefully, determined to enjoy the world around her. Every walk, no matter how short, felt like a victory. Her family admired her strength. They knew she had been through so much, both physically and emotionally, yet she faced each day with quiet courage. At home, White Cloud was finally happy. She had toys, soft blankets, and love, things she had never truly known before. She loved resting on the couch while her family watched TV, gently placing her head on their laps. And sometimes, just before falling asleep, she'd reach out her paw one more time, not from fear anymore, but as a simple gesture of love. When they took her outside, people often stopped their cars just to admire her. Strangers would roll down their windows and say, "Your dog is beautiful." And every time her family smiled, knowing how far she'd come. Once no one even noticed her. Now everyone saw her, not just because of her looks, but because love had changed her completely. She had become the perfect example of what patience and compassion can do. Love had given her back her light. Even though her past would always be part of her, it no longer defined her. Her new life was filled with peace, comfort, and trust. And every time her paw touched their hands, it reminded her family of how far she had come. From a scared, unwanted dog to a symbol of hope. They often wondered how anyone could have left her behind. But then they realized something. Maybe she was meant to find them instead. Maybe she had to go through that dark chapter so she could discover what real love feels like. Now White Cloud wakes up every morning knowing she's home. She greets her family with soft eyes and slow tail wags. She still walks carefully, but her steps are confident. Her life isn't perfect. She still has her old aches and occasional fears, but she's happy, truly happy. And when people ask how a dog with such a painful past could learn to trust again, her family always gives the same answer, because love heals everything. White Cloud's story reminds us that every animal deserves another chance. Behind every scared face in a shelter is a heart waiting to be loved. Sometimes all it takes is one person willing to see beyond the fear. Once she was invisible. Now she's unforgettable. If White Cloud's story touched your heart, remember, every like, comment, or share helps more animals like her get their second chance. Even sharing White Cloud's story can help another dog find love.